How you doing? Skylar here from the Mint Change You Can Wear. Today we're going to be talking about making a center hole for your coin rings. So that's the first step to making a good coin ring, is have a nice, accurate center hole. There's a lot of ways of taking care of that. The first way I'm going to discuss today is with the 9-piece punch and die set. This is from Harbor Freight. So what we're going to do, this is the most common way probably you're going to see of making a coin ring hole. What people do, generally speaking, is they'll mark their coin in some way, and then they'll go ahead and slide it into the appropriate hole, usually 1/2 inches. This is the most common size, and then they'll go ahead and put the punch in, and then take a hammer and hammer it down and make your hole. The problem with that is the hammering. When you hammer it, if you don't get it through in the first strike, that coin's going to shift a little bit. And when it shifts, you're not going to have a perfectly centered hole anymore, so you're going to be kind of back to square one. So instead of doing the hammer method, which you could if you want to do it on the cheap, that's the way of doing it. But for me, we're going to discuss using a press to just press that down in there, so that way there's no shifting of the coin. But before we get to that, we're going to go ahead and talk about actually marking the center. So what we need to do, before we even mark the center part of the hole, we need to discuss ring size. So the ring size that you want is going to determine what kind of hole you're going to put in there. I'm going to make a whole other video on that, but so let's just go ahead and bypass that for now. I'm going to make it the most common hole, which is 1/2 inch. So we have to make a mark on there that would accommodate a 1/2 inch punch hole. So what we want to do is I'm going to go ahead and mark this coin to where it has a circle on there that will be able to be seen through this 1/2 inch punch hole to make it center. In order to do that, I have a piece of board that I use, just like a little piece of melamine or something like that. The thickness is what I'm looking for there. So you're going to have to find a piece of material that's got some thickness that's going to be appropriate for the hole you're going to make. So let's get a Sharpie. Let's see here. What this is going to do is going to be supporting the Sharpie while I'm holding on here and spinning the coin around to make the marks on the coin ring. On the coin, not a ring yet. So here we go. It's key to keep the coin really straight up and down and keep the pin extremely steady. And see, what you're going to get is a hole. It's going to be perfectly marked center, because that pin hasn't moved and the coin's staying straight up and down, so you know it's a perfectly centered hole, if you can see that. Okay, now the key here is that black mark. You're going to want to be able to see that on the inside of this hole. If you can see on the inside of that hole, you can center it. You can center it really nicely right in there. That one actually is about perfect. You can just see a little bit of the black. Hard to see. There, you can see it. See if I can't get the camera to zoom on that. See a little bit of the black ring, and just make that black ring perfectly equidistant all the way around inside that hole. So the way to do that, to easily adjust that, let's see here. Let's get yourself a piece of tape and just kind of stick it onto the tape real good. And then you can slide it around to make it exactly where you want it. A little closer. Okay. Anyway, so what we're going to do is just, you can move it around like this now. Make it exactly where you want it. So now what the deal is, I can see just enough of that black mark on the inside of this hole so I know it's centered. And the next step is to put this punch inside there. But with Harbor Freight, you know how quality their tools are? Well, they're not really that quality, so there's a little bit of a movement of this punch inside of that hole. So what you're going to want to do is center that punch inside the hole now. And once you have it perfectly centered, you're ready to go. So now if you wanted to go ahead and hold it real tight and hit it with a hammer, you can do that. The key to that really is make sure that's held tight right where you want it, and hit that thing hard enough to get it through on the first or second hit. If you don't do that, everything's going to shift on you. But I'm not going to do that, actually. You can do it if you want, but what I'm going to do is I use the 6-ton press over here. This is the tool that really makes the difference in coin rings. It's I guess it's an A-frame press from Harbor Freight. I think it cost me about $60 right there somewhere. And it's even and controlled. You're not going to have a problem with the coin shifting, and yeah, it's really the tool to use. So what we're going to do now, and you see they came with these plates for pressing, so you just keep them to where they're split kind of, so that way your punch will be able to go through that without getting marred up. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on there now. Punch out the center hole. Just make sure it's nice and centered. Okay. Alright. Okay, so there's your center punch. Now you make sure that let me see here. Might not get it to zoom. Just make sure that you're not going to have, when you see the center punch, if you have more black marks on one side than the other, you're going to have to take note of that, because if it's off center at all, you're going to have to file that hole back round again. Back center. Okay, once you get to this point, usually you get one of the smaller punches out of the kit and just kind of cement the rest of the way through. So now what we have is a perfectly centered hole in our coin. So that's a 1/2-inch hole. I'm not going to focus. There we go. That is the key to making any good coin ring. That's the first step. It's very foundational. If you don't have this centered, your coin ring is going to be, it's going to be messed up some way. So that is one of the easier ways of doing it. There's another way. Actually, I don't really use this way anymore for American coinage. I have dies made that deal with American coins. And here's what one of those looks like. So this is, I had this made at a metal shop, and basically what is, I have them for different size holes. This is a 1/2-inch one, so it's got a 1/2-inch hole in it that'll accommodate either a quarter on one side. You flip it around, you have a $1/2 on the other. This way there's no marking at all. You just stick the coin right in. And I have this fit to where an uncirculated coin will fit just perfectly in there without any wiggle in it. And if you have a more worn coin, what you do is you cut a piece of like toilet paper or tissue paper or something like that. This is like 3 pieces thick. And then you cut a piece that's going to fit inside your hole, or right over the hole, and then you can press a coin right into it. And that'll take up any slack that you might have in there, because you want that thing centered in that hole. If you don't have it centered, you're gonna, like I said, you're gonna come up with a messed up coin. So anyway, once you do that, you can just put the top over it, put the punch in it, and do the same thing with the press. You press it right down in there. If you don't have the press, and you can still do the hammer, I'm sure. I've never tried it with one of these, but it's gonna be the exact same thing as the punch and die set, so I know that works. But that is the 2 different methods of doing it. Alright, thanks. And we're going to be moving on to how to actually make a $1.25 and $1/2. And each coin's going to be a little bit different, so you might want to watch, depending on which coin ring you want to make, you're going to have to watch the appropriate video. Alright, thank you. Have a good day.